Okay, so when you think of Japan, what comes to mind? Probably spotless streets, right? Incredible order. Now, what about India? You probably think of that vibrant, chaotic energy of a nation that's just exploding with growth, but that also, often comes with some sanitation challenges. So we're going to dig into what's really going on behind these two very different pictures.
All right, to get a real sense of just how massive this difference is, let's just look at one thing. Where does the trash actually go? In Japan, it's almost unbelievable. Only 1.1% of their municipal waste ends up in a landfill. Now, flip that completely on its head for India. We're talking about roughly half, 50%, of all that waste just getting dumped in open landfills or even right on the streets. Yeah, that one number tells you almost everything you need to know.
So that just makes you wonder, right? How? How on earth did two major nations, both with huge, dense populations, end up on such completely different tracks when it comes to keeping things clean? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down right now.
Okay, first up, a tale of two streets. We're going to look past what you can see on the surface and really get into the invisible forces, the culture, the systems that are making all the difference.
So let's start with what we'll call the cultural blueprint. Think of it like the software that's running society. The big question here is cleanliness really about the hardware, the bins and the trucks, or is it all about the habits and the mindset of the people?
A perfect example of Japan's cultural software is this concept called osoji. And get this is not a punishment, it's a core, scheduled part of their school day. For about 15 minutes, students themselves, not janitors, clean everything. We're talking classrooms, hallways, even the toilets. And what this does from a very young age is build this incredibly powerful sense of shared ownership and responsibility for public spaces.
And that really gets to the heart of a huge difference in mindset. So in Japan, it's seen as a collective, almost a moral duty to keep public spaces clean. It's backed by some pretty strong social pressure. In India, on the other hand, there tends to be a much bigger divide between your private space, your home, which is kept clean, and the public street, which is often seen as, someone else's problem or the government's job. And there's a historical layer here, too. For a long time, cleaning work was associated with specific castes, which unfortunately created a stigma around it that can sometimes discourage everybody from just pitching in.
All right, so that's the cultural software. But what about the hardware? Let's talk about the actual systems, the infrastructure that each country has in place to deal with all this waste.
Okay, check this out. In some towns in Japan, and this is not an exaggeration, residents have to sort their garbage into as many as 45 different categories. Different types of plastic, different kinds of paper, metals, glass. It's incredibly detailed. I mean, just think about the level of public cooperation and the super sophisticated system you need to make that work.
Now, let's contrast that with India, which is, frankly, wrestling with the challenge on a completely different scale. The national waste collection rate is about 70%, which is actually a huge achievement in itself, but that number can drop all the way to below 50% when you get into smaller towns. The basic infrastructure is still a massive work in progress across such a huge and diverse country.
Okay, this chart right here gives us a really clear side-by-side look. So look at collection coverage. Japan, a systematic 100%. India, around 70% nationally. Waste sorting, we just talked about it. Anywhere from 8 to 45 categories in Japan versus, very little separation at the source in many parts of India. And the payoff is huge. Japan's overall recycling rate is a massive 87%. India's is closer to 15% with a heavy reliance on landfills. The difference in the systems is it's immense.
Right. And it's so important to remember that these systems didn't just pop up overnight. Japan started laying the groundwork for this stuff way back in 1970. They've been building and tweaking this system for more than half a century. India's big national push, the Swachh Bharat, or Clean India Mission, is way more recent. That was launched in 2014. So you've got this story of Japan's long, slow, steady evolution versus India's more recent, really ambitious and rapid national campaign.
And this all comes down to a really crucial point. What becomes the accepted norm in a society? This quote from Mint magazine just nails it. In India, littering on the road is the norm. In Japan, cleanliness is the norm. It's such a simple way of saying that. At the end of the day, our behavior is powerfully shaped by what we see everyone else doing around us.
Okay, so after looking at all this, what are the big takeaways? What can we really learn from comparing these two very different models? Let's boil it down.
It really seems to give us a kind of four-part recipe for a cleaner nation. Step 1, you have to bake the value of cleanliness into the culture right from childhood, just like Osoji does. Step 2, you absolutely have to build that robust hardware, the reliable collection and processing systems. Step 3, you got to have clear rules and, this is key, you have to enforce them consistently. And finally, step 4, you have to get the community involved to build that sense of, this is our space. See? It's not one or the other. You need the software and the hardware working together.
And if you want to see the real-world impact of all this, well, the numbers are pretty staggering. Just look at the 2022 Environmental Performance Index. It's a big measure of overall environmental health. Japan ranked 25th globally. India ranked 180th. And this isn't just about having pretty streets, you know? This is about public health, it's about quality of life, and really the long-term sustainability of the country.
So, that leaves us with this one big question to think about. Is a clean city built with bins and trucks, or is it built with habits and values? And I think what we've seen is that the real answer is you can't have one without the other. The best hardware in the world is useless without the right cultural software to run it. And all the good intentions in the world just fall apart if there isn't a system in place to make them